Mark was alone, 140 million miles away from home, and he has only 31 days of food left. Everyone on Earth believes that Mark Watney is dead, but science isn't ready to give up on him yet. A violent Martian storm forces Mark's crew to abandon the mission, leaving him behind after believing he didn't survive. But once the storm passes, the truth is revealed. Mark Watney is still alive. A communication antenna has pierced straight through his abdomen, leaving him seriously injured. Fighting through unbearable pain, Mark manages to regain consciousness and slowly makes his way back to the HAB, the habitat where the crew had been living. Once inside, he painfully removes the antenna from his own body and treats his injuries by himself. However, surviving the injury is only the beginning of his problems. The storm has destroyed all of his communication equipment, making it impossible to contact Earth. He is now completely stranded on Mars while everyone back home believes he's dead. Mark quickly realizes that if he wants to survive, he'll have to wait for the next Mars mission. Unfortunately, that mission isn't scheduled to arrive for another 4 years, and its landing site will be nearly 3,200 kilometers, 2,000 miles, away from his location. The biggest problem is that he doesn't have enough food to stay alive for that long. That's when he comes up with an incredible plan. Mark is a botanist, so he decides to grow food on Mars. He still has a few potatoes left, and instead of eating all of them, he decides to plant them. But Mars doesn't have fertile soil. To solve that problem, Mark mixes human waste with Martian soil, creating fertilizer that can support plant growth. Now he faces an even greater challenge: water. Using his scientific knowledge, Mark knows that water can be produced by combining hydrogen and oxygen. During his first attempt, however, he miscalculates the amount of oxygen produced from his own breathing, causing a small explosion inside the HAB. Thankfully, he survives. Learning from his mistake, he carefully recalculates everything and successfully begins producing water. As moisture slowly builds up inside the habitat, the soil becomes suitable for farming. A few days later, tiny potato plants begin sprouting from the ground. On a planet where nothing naturally grows, seeing those green shoots fills Mark with hope. For the first time since being stranded, he truly believes he has a chance to survive. Meanwhile, back on Earth, NASA officially declares Mark Watney dead. News of his death spreads around the world, and memorial services are held in his honor. But the very next day, everything changes. While reviewing fresh satellite images from Mars, one of NASA's satellite operators notices that several pieces of equipment near the HAB have moved from their original positions. In reality, Mark had simply relocated his solar panels. That small detail is enough for NASA to realize something unbelievable. Mark Watney is alive. Although everyone is overjoyed by the discovery, NASA's senior officials point out a harsh reality. Even if Mark is still alive, sending a rescue mission to Mars will take months, and they fear he may starve before help can arrive. Back on Mars, nearly 60 days have passed since Mark was stranded. His potato farm is thriving, and after just 48 days, the harvest turns out even better than he expected. He eats the larger potatoes while saving the smaller ones to plant another crop, extending his food supply even further. Still, Mark knows that potatoes alone won't keep him alive for 4 years. If he truly wants to survive, he has to re-establish contact with Earth. He remembers that the Mars Pathfinder probe, which landed on Mars in 1997, should still be somewhere on the planet. Determined, Mark sets out on a long journey across the Martian surface to find it. Back on Earth, NASA watches his every move through satellite imagery and realizes exactly